Welcome to the build guide for Please Please Yes from BrokenToad, Blacksun Miniatures and the Jim Henson Company. So now that you've cleaned off your model with warm soapy water, we will start with the most complicated part of this build, which is the spines on the back of the Chamberlain. Because as you may or may not know from the film, they don't go in order of size. They are quite erratic and random. So whilst they're still on the sprue, give them a bit of a clean, a bit of a scrape down, just make sure there's no flash or mold lines on them, and then we'll start with the two very smallest, which will go at the bottom. So just trim off any excess resin from the bottom of those and make sure you test fit as well. You don't want to be gluing these in the wrong place. So all it takes is a little tiny dab of super glue and these will hold in place very nicely. A pair of tweezers is always handy with things like this. It saves you from dropping the very small pieces. Just don't squeeze too hard. Resin has a tendency to escape from tweezers at high velocity. There we go, that's the two bottom ones in. Next we're going to go to the two largest ones. We need to get those out of the way so we know how much room we're dealing with for the other spines. Again, chop them off and just clean up any excess resin on the bottom. And please, as always, be careful if you're using sharp implements such as the scalpel. And if you are younger, please seek adult supervision. So the two large spikes fit in there, pointing upwards. If you're in doubt, obviously this video is here to help, and still framed from the movie will also be useful. Next we're going to go to the other side of the sprue and chop off two of the smaller ones. And these fit slightly higher up towards the shoulder blades. So now we have two more to go at the top here, and these are two of the smaller ones. So with 2 spines left, the smaller of the 2, which we're just putting in here, will go on the far right. And then the larger one needs to be cut down slightly more to fit in between. And there we go. That's all the spines and the most complicated part, probably of the entire build, all done. So we'll start cleaning up some of the other pieces now. The secondary arms on the Chamberlain fit into 2 holes either side of where you've been putting the spines. So for the moment we'll just take any excess resin off of those, namely off the elbow on the left arm, or his left. And then there's an excess piece right next to the square peg on the other arm. For the Chamberlain's head, there is a little piece that needs trimming off on the flat part of the back. Once that's gone, that neck and head will fit in perfectly. On the hand, there's a little piece that's just on top of the square peg. So be very, very careful. Not all of this needs to be trimmed off. You've got to leave the square peg itself intact, and it goes down the side a little bit as well, so just trim it down, take off a little bit at a time until it fits into the wrist, like so. So the Chamberlain himself will fit straight onto the patch on the base, and the stone ornament or pillar just fits in. Just match the shape of the pillar base to the hole on the base itself, and don't forget to push down both sides to get a secure connection. So you can glue this in. It is entirely up to you as to when you're going to paint it. So for the moment we'll just glue in the rest of the Chamberlain. I would advise leaving the models separate for the time being until you've painted them. It will make things a lot easier, especially if you're a beginner. So pop the hand on. And then we'll do the secondary arms. And there we go, that's the Chamberlain complete. So now we'll move on to doing Kira and Jen. And again, start by trimming off any excess resin. If there are square pegs, make sure you leave those intact and just tidy up any mould lines that may be on the model. There aren't many. Arms are usually where most mould lines occur, simply because of how moulds are made. If you match the square pegs up on Kira, you can see how her arms go, so they wrap around the pillar. And there's obviously 2 pegs on the floor for her feet to go into, so she will sit like that. So we'll get those arms glued in place. They can only fit in one way, but please do make sure you test fit everything first. For the hair, there is a slight mould line at the bottom, but just trim that down and pay attention to how the hair looks. It's fairly defined sort of sections of hair, so just gently trim away until it looks natural. And when you glue the heads on, you'll want to give them a little press down just to make sure they've got a secure connection. Like so. That's Kira all done. And now we move on to Jen. He has a little bit of excess resin on his foot, but it is to the side of the square peg, so make sure you leave the square peg where it is and just carve away the excess resin to the side of it. And the joints onto his, from the arms to the body, are flat, so if there's excess resin, just carve that off. If you're uncomfortable having the scalpel that close to your fingers, please just use sandpaper instead. Just use caution and common sense. The arms for Jen will fit in only one way, and the sort of sleeve extensions come onto the sides of the body. There's a point for them to sit, and we'll pop his leg on as well. Again, this will only go on one way, and the shape of the where the knee meets the rest of the knee on the body ensures that it's the correct position for popping onto the base. You can see there's a groove down the side of his cloak, and that's where the sleeve sections sort of fit into. And the same on the other side. So now we're just left with the final part, which is to put Jen's head on. And again, just apply a little bit of pressure to make sure you've got a good connection. Right, the glued models can be placed on the plinth if you would like. I would recommend keeping them separate for the time being, just so you can paint them easier. And obviously that is where the Chamberlain sits. And Jen is around this side of the pillar. Again, with both hands pressing up against it. Hopefully this has been useful and you've enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more build guides from BrokenToad, Blacksun Miniatures, and the Jim Henson Company. Thank you very much. Bye bye.